Hello and welcome to a video math lesson. This lesson is about, believe it or not, graphing straight line with intercepts. You can see our lovely photo there, man pointing at a graph, so clearly we'll be graphing here. I think that guy needs a little more facial hair, and he's obviously evil. Anyway, moving on. So we're going to look at this little example here to figure out what we're talking about. Okay, it says consider the relation y equals 1/2 x plus 1. Okay, it says complete this table and graph. So we've got this table with x values. We're going to fill out the y values by taking each of these x values and plugging them into the rule where the x is. Okay, so we've got our first x value, -4. We're going to plug that into our rule. Where there once was an x, we rewrite it with that -4 instead. And we evaluate. So we simplify this expression. So 1/2 times -4 is, of course, -2. And we have the plus 1 still. Okay, and -2 plus 1 is -1. So we stick that in our little box. And we'll go through and do the rest of all these points. It's simple. We don't need to write it out every time. Really, we just take half the x value and add 1. So half of -3 is -1/2, plus 1 is, half of -3 is -1.5, plus 1 is -0.5, -1/2. Half of -2 is -1, plus 1 is 0. And then we can just fill out the rest of these here. Same pattern throughout. Okay, then what we'll do is we'll take a pair of coordinates, an x and a y, and plot them out. So we have x is -4, so we go out to -4 on the x-axis, and we go down to -1 on the y, and we put a dot. Then we go out to -3 and down to -0.5 and put a dot, and we do the same for all the rest and add our line. So we have a nice, lovely line. What they want us to do now is consider what are the coordinates, find the coordinates of the point where the line crosses the y-axis. Okay, so here's our y-axis, okay, and the point where the line crosses it is right there. The coordinates there are, of course, 0, it's 0 on the x, and 1 on the y, so 0, 1. And then they say do the same for where it crosses the x-axis. Crosses the x-axis right there at -2, 0. So we have our wonderful intercepts. Now, what they ask is our y and x intercept. Now what they're asking is, how might you find the x and y intercept without drawing a table and plotting points? And this is the key here. And what you need to notice in order to figure this out is that where the y-intercept is, you have an x value of 0. And where the x-intercept is, you have a y value of 0. And if you think about it, that's always going to be the case no matter what line you have. Because if it crosses the y-axis, wherever it's crossing the y-axis, of course, the y-axis is always on x equals 0. And where it crosses the x-axis is always on y equals 0. So, the y-axis is always on x equals 0. The x-axis is always on y equals 0. So those coordinates will always be the same. For the x-intercept, the y-coordinate will be 0. For the y-intercept, the x-coordinate will be 0. So, let's take a look at our key ideas here. And that's what they're telling us. They say the y-intercept is the point on the y-axis. In other words, the point where x equals 0. And the x-intercept is the point where y equals 0. So what we can do is substitute x equals 0 into the equation to find the y-intercept, and substitute y equals 0 into the equation, into the rule, to find the x-intercept. So here they have a rule, a quick little example. 2x plus 3y equals 6. To find the y-intercept, they say, well, x is going to be 0. So they take a 0 and plug it into that equation, where the x was. And they simplify that equation and solve for y, finding that y equals 2. And they, to find the x-intercept, they say that's the point where y equals 0, so they plug in the 0 where the y was, they simplify, and they get x equals 3. And so they can plot that line through those 2 points, and it's lovely. We will go through this particular example as well as one more in a video to follow, and I'm sure you'll enjoy it very much. See you next time.